home tomorrow.
Mhm.
Okay, it is 9:30 and we are going to start. And thank you everybody for coming. We might have some stragglers coming in. We'll see.
Mhm.
But we are Anita's going to bring us our opening reflection.
So this isn't necessarily specifically garden related. It's more related to our relationship with nature. And that's something that I think about a lot because I think it's something that as a society needs some work. So anyway, this is from a Sand County Almanac. It's Aldo Leopold. And his chapters, at one point, he kind of breaks down into his observations by month. And so I thought, only apropos that I share, oh shoot, hang on, I lost my bookmark. Can't do that. I haven't read through all of it yet, but anyway, so I thought only apropos that I should share his essay on July. And I won't read the whole thing, but the portions that I'm alluding to that speak to our relationship with nature. So, so this is his essay for the month of July. It's called Great Possessions, and I would like to add quotation marks around that, and you'll see why. So, great possessions. 120 acres, according to the county clerk, is the extent of my worldly domain. But the county clerk is a sleepy fellow who never looks at his record books before 9 o'clock. What would they show at daybreak is the question here at issue. Books or no books, it is a fact, patent both to my dog and myself, that at daybreak I am the sole owner of all the acres I can walk over. It's not only boundaries that disappear, but also the thought of being bounded. I love that. Expanses unknown to deed or map are known to every dawn, and solitude, supposed no longer to exist in my county, extends on every hand as far as the dew can reach. Like other great landowners, I have tenants. They are negligent about rents, but very punctilious about tenures. Indeed, at every daybreak from April to July, they proclaim their boundaries to each other, and so acknowledge, at least by inference, their fiefdom to me. This daily ceremony, contrary to what you might suppose, begins with the utmost decorum. Who originally laid down its protocols, I do not know. At 3:30 a.m., with such dignity as I can muster of a July morning, I step from my cabin door, bearing in either hand my emblems of sovereignty, a coffee pot and notebook. I seat myself on a bench facing the white wake of the morning star. I set the pot beside me. I extract a cup from my shirt front, hoping none will notice its informal mode of transport. I get out my watch, pour coffee, and lay notebook on knee. This is the cue for the proclamations to begin. At 3:35, the nearest field sparrow avows in a clear tenor chant that he holds the jack pine copse north to the riverbank and south to the old wagon track. One by one, all the other field sparrows within earshot recite their respective holdings. There are no disputes, at least at this hour, so I just listen, hoping inwardly that their women folk acquiesce in this happy accord over the status quo ante, which I did not look up. I'm not sure what that is. My Latin's lacking. Before the field sparrows have quite gone the rounds, the robin in the big elm warbles loudly his claim to the crotch where the ice storm tore off a limb, and all appurtenances pertaining thereto, meaning in his case, all the angleworms and the not very spacious subjacent lawn. The robin's insistent caroling awakens the oriole, who now tells the world of orioles that the pendant branch of the elm belongs to him, together with all fiber-bearing milkweed stalks nearby, all loose strings in the garden, and the exclusive right to flash like a burst of fire from one of these to another. My watch says 3:50. The indigo bunting on the hill asserts title to the dead oak limb left by the 1936 drought and to diverse nearby bugs and bushes. He does not claim, but I think he implies, the right to outblue all bluebirds and all spiderworts that have turned their faces to the dawn. We sally forth, the dog and I, at random. He has paid scant respect to all these vocal goings on. For him, the evidence of tenantry is not song but scent. Any illiterate bundle of feathers, he says, can make a noise in a tree. Now he's going to translate for me the olfactory poems that who knows what silent creatures have written in the summer night. At the end of each poem sits the author, if we can find him. What we actually find is beyond predicting. A rabbit suddenly yearning to be elsewhere, a woodcock fluttering his disclaimer, a cock pheasant indignant over wetting his feathers in the grass. Once in a while, we turn up a coon or mink, returning late from the night's foray. Sometimes we rout a heron from his unfinished fishing or surprise the mother wood duck with her convoy of ducklings, headed full steam for the shelter of the pickerel weeds. Sometimes we see deer sauntering back to the thickets, replete with alfalfa blooms, veronica, and wild lettuce. More often, we see only the interweaving darkened lines that lazy hooves have traced on the silken fabric of the dew. I can feel the sun now. The bird chorus has run out of breath. The far clank of cowbells bespeaks a herd ambling to pasture. A tractor roars, warning that my neighbor is astir. The world has shrunk to those mean dimensions known to county clerks. We turned toward home and breakfast. I just love that.
Yeah.
Paying attention to nature and understanding it, thinking of it differently than I think a lot of folks do. Love that. If you haven't read this book, I would recommend it. It's really wonderful. It's Sand County Almanac by Aldo Leopold. It's that.
I love that because the whole thing, I forget exactly how you worded it about boundaries. Bounded, was it boundaries and bounded? But we, first of all, the whole idea that we own this, it's ours,
Right.
it's our possessions, as you said in quotes. That's why you said you'd like to put quotes around it,
Right.
probably.
Right.
And it bounds us too, to if we think, especially if we think of it as our possessions, it's things that we have to take care of because they're our possessions. But I don't know, just yeah, it is not it's not ours, and the nature in it is not ours.
Right. We're part of it.
Yeah.
Hey, Becky. My oldest sister, who's since long passed, but she and I had a great sense of humor between the two of us. And you guys all know that I aspire to greatness, right? With my Halifax Queen at att.net email. That's because I live on Halifax Court, by the way, people.
Yeah.
Okay. And I don't mind if anybody else on the court is a queen too. Okay. But anywho, one day she called me when I lived at my other property, and she said, "What are you doing? Are you outside?" And I said, "Yes, I'm surveying my domain." And I just said it to be funny to my sister, but you know what? It has stuck. And ever since, when I take a walk around the yard and just spend some time with the garden, I think of it and of her fondly as surveying my domain. And I have to take care of my domain and stay in touch with it. You lose track of part of your domain goes to somebody else.
Yeah.
So, or something else. So that just your reading, Anita, kind of reminded me of my domain.
Oh, good. Yeah.
Hey, Becky.
Yeah.
Bill, looking at the phone here, and it looks like we may have some rain here shortly. Would it be all right if we went ahead and started and then
please do.
Would it be all right with Terry if we ask questions at the end instead of vice versa?
I agree. If you've got a window, let's do it.
Okay.
Ready?
Unplugged.
And I wanted to mention, I don't know if anybody, it sounds like people are pretty busy today and who lives near Mooresville, but Kate Homan is participating in the Mooresville Street Fair. And she's in the 5 East building, which is inside and air conditioning. And she's showing and selling some of her art. So I just
Oh.
want to give her a plug.
That's
What-
today.
Yeah, that's today. And I think the times are like, I don't know, 10 to 3 or something like that.
But where is that? Is it like, is there a fairgrounds over there or something?
No, it's just a street fair. It's downtown.
Huh, okay.
And then she's in a venue that's some kind of events venue, and
Oh,
it's called 5 East.
Oh, I have seen that. Okay.
How do I flip it
I
to?
won't be able to go, but
Yeah, you're
yeah, I'm
okay.
out of town,
Headed outside.
Bargersville.
You know the old song, I fought the law and the law won.
Yeah.
I think we should change the words this summer to I fought the weeds and the weeds won.
Amen to that. Golly.
I am going to remind everybody that so that for the recording, we have, the actual presentation. Please mute unless you want to say
Oh.
something, then push your space bar and talk, that's fine. But we need to stay muted so we see the presentation on the recording.
I'm just going to
Except for
show.
Pam. Don't mute yourself, Pam.
No, I was going to show the front of the house where we have daylilies and purple sage, but it looks really ugly and the daylilies are all done. So I'm just going to kind of stick with the back section of the house. This is right behind our screened in porch. You can see our kitty Sadie in the window there. And we have something that you guys were interested in. We have a couple spirea there, and then potentilla. We've lost one of the potentilla, but the 3 that are left are doing pretty good. And then we have a very overgrown blue global spruce, I think it's called. And we're trying to decide what to do with it. We're thinking about pulling it out. And for those of you that weren't here last year when we showed our garden, we've got like a formal fenced in garden section that's behind the fences. And then outside of it, we have more sage, a plant that I can't remember the name of. That's more euonymus too? Yeah, okay. Okay. And a rose bush that's done. And Rose of Sharon plant. And this is real shady back here. So we have, I can't think of the Huchera, the Latin name for coral bells. And Bill likes to have a variety of them. And plumeria that I have out front too. And it has the prettiest little lavender bloom on it. And then
Pam,
back in the
Pam, is that real shady there where the plumeria is?
very shady.
Okay, that's good to know. And it blooms.
Yes, still
Huh.
blooms.
Okay.
The one that's in partial shade out front blooms more. And then we have some
So when does it bloom? Is it late summer or is it
late summer. Late summer. And we have a little lilac patch out in the back with a sweet gum tree. And then back in the far corner, if I could do a close up, I don't know how to do it. Bill's gonna do it just like the phone.
I don't know.
No, but we have a little hosta garden and a couple of dogwood trees and a little path made out of river rocks back there. So that's one corner. And then behind our garage, we have our vegetable garden, which consists of tomatoes, basil, and bell peppers. And I was going to see if you could see some, we're getting some little tomatoes. Bill's trying to, does that make things bigger?
No, just
Yes.
Bill's messing with the pad here. I will like it where I can see it bigger so I can see where I'm going.
Yeah, I'm just trying to.
Can you show
Okay.
your basil?
Yeah, it's doing really good.
Gosh, that
We've-
looks great.
We've been having a lot of caprese salads. So you can see we've got a lot of little tomatoes on the vine, and kind of in the background there, we've plucked about six little tomatoes. And then we have bell peppers. And that's our vegetable garden. And this wild looking thing is where I sowed seeds that not wild seeds, but seeds that I think we got with Laura Essex talk that was over at Danville. And it's kind of wild and crazy, and it's mostly brown-eyed Susans. And there's some cone flowers. And then we have boxwoods.
If anybody has any idea of how to tell the difference between the coneflowers and sunflower or black-eyed Susans when they're coming up, I'd love to know it.
We have some, I'll show you. We have some yellow coneflowers. So, and then back on the trellises, which we painted this year, we have clematis, and we have an established one on the left that has come back. And the one on the right, we lost this year for some reason. I don't know why. And we have a nice new little one that's coming back. And while I'm over here in the garage, I'll walk through the brown-eyed Susans. We have our rhubarb patch. Bill loves rhubarb. And then along the side of the garage here, we have hydrangeas.
You might be getting a little bit far from your Wi-Fi.
What are called iteas, which I don't really care for a lot. So I just thought I'd show you these because we had that big discussion about old bloom, new bloom. We decided these were old bloom, but the way we cut them back didn't seem to make much difference. But I don't know if you can see it. We do have a few blooms. So, okay, back by the boxwood. And we have a Wigelia plant that's going to town this year. And we have the brick walkway to the middle of the garden. And I'm going to go through the main entrance here so you can kind of get a feel for it. We've got an arbor with clematis on either side and a variety of plants. We have some very overgrown arborvitae that are kind of coming apart now instead of staying in spires. And then going into the garden, back here I have lots of lily of the valley, and I have some daylilies that are not quite ready to bloom. And I have a hydrangea here that a close friend gave to me when my dad died. That's doing well, even in shade. And I have lots of daylilies, as you will see. Lantana. And one of my lantanas is not doing anything. I guess I will fertilize some more, because on the other side that were planted at exactly the same time, they're going to town. So
The lantana is an annual though, right?
yes, it's an annual. And then around, now these daylilies are just now blooming. And here's my prize winning hydrangea. That's one plant. And it's a new growth hydrangea. We always cut it way, way back. And there's Sadie saying hello again. She's been meowing.
So Pam, you mean that you had cut that hydrangea back and it's already come up that big and bloomed like that?
Yes, we cut it back
Wow.
about to a foot off the ground.
Wow.
Do you
And
remember Pam?
no, I don't remember the variety. It's been in for probably 20 years. Yeah. And we're getting our bumper crop of brown-eyed Susans, as you can see, on either side. And going back, yeah, we also have something called tick seed. And it actually used to be on the whole left side of the garden, but the coneflowers, brown-eyed Susans, traveled over and kind of choked it out. So we've kind of been trying to reestablish it, and it blooms earlier. So most of it is done blooming, except this that's kind of hanging over the pathway. And then going back to the coneflowers, we have some really pretty ones that Bill from Avon Gardens that Bill planted. We have pink and we have yellow. And I thought maybe I could do a close up. The coneflowers have like a big yellow center with little spikes on them, and they kind of hang down, whereas the brown-eyed Susans have the brown centers. So that's one way.
But when they're coming up in the spring, they look darn similar. It's hard to tell the difference. Yeah. That's the thing that I was wondering too. I think that's what Becky was thinking of.
Yeah,
like,
because
how do you tell the difference in the spring?
Yeah, let's say you want to encourage more coneflowers and you want the brown-eyed Susans to kind of back off, but you don't know which ones to pull.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, ours are kind of in sections, and you're right, the leaves look quite a bit alike. And Bill actually, for as many as there are, he really cut them back last year. They are just on the invasive side.
That's the way it goes.
Yeah.
I think it's the nature of it. Some plants, you cut them, they grow better.
Yeah. And there's some boxwoods back here. And then these are evening primrose. They're not blooming at the moment, but they're yellow, and they open in towards the evening, right? And then close up during the day. Some red yarrow, some asters that bloom in the fall, and those have kind of spread nicely. We have a red Woodgelia on the other side, and I'll look down at Bill's rose garden, and oh my gosh, they were gorgeous this summer. He's cut back deadheaded lots of them, and we're hoping to come back more. Yeah, they're coming back a little, he says. And then the asters again, some kind of orangey yellow daylilies, some catmint that one of you gave me from a little teeny start. Was it you, Becky?
Yes.
Bring catmint last year, and it is going to town.
And I have a question about that right now, because I know I'm thinking that with the catmint, if you cut it back, then it might rebloom, but I hate to do it because the bees are all over it. I hate to cut it back when they're still feeding on it. I mean,
we'll probably trim some, and I'll tell you if it comes back.
Well, you do it, but that's my conflict, is I want it to look pretty, but I don't want to take away the food
Blooms
source.
Yeah. And then we have a golden euonymus shrub and some New Guinea impatiens like we have at the church. Here's my milkweed plant. I haven't really looked to see if has anybody seen the larvae yet for the butterflies.
Nope.
I haven't either so far.
Gosh, that milkweed looks great though. I mean, that that's that variety that's the pink blooming or whatever, and not the common, but man, that looks great.
Yeah.
Is it a swamp? Is it the swamp one, or which one is, if it's not common, is it the swamp milkweed? Because I'm thinking about incorporating that into my garden space.
That might be called the swamp. I'm not sure on that, Becky.
I can't remember either. Laura had two kinds, and I got one of each kind, and the other one died out after the first year. And this little girl has just come back. So
So, do you water it a lot? Because that's the thing about the swamp milkweed. I mean, I'll have to purposefully water it whereas my orange butterfly, the orange butterfly weed, I'm minimal with that because it likes to be dry.
Well, we water our garden, especially when you have drought like we've had quite often. We've got a Japanese maple, and I think the drought is kind of making it less intense red because it was really, really super, super red this spring and so pretty. And then a different color of and kind of daylily, and the clematis on the arbor. And then the middle sections, you can see we have 4 middle sections, hopefully. And they're mostly mints and chives. And I did have thyme that had come back year after year after year, but it died out for some reason this year. And then I have zinnias planted, and I have little statues reminding me of things like this is a morel mushroom, and my grandpa was a fantastic morel mushroom hunter. And I thought I was getting all the same color because we bought a whole tray of zinnias, but it ended up getting pink and kind of tangerine color. There's my chives. And then in this one, I have a bunny smelling the zinnias. And I had a very dear friend who died a few years ago, Sue Leslie, and she loved bunnies and rabbits and that sort of thing. So that reminds me of her. And I used to know the names of the mints. Yeah, there's the bee Becky was talking about on the, I don't know if you can see, yeah, there he is. Try to get him towards the middle.
And
eating the nectar.
They're so beautiful, but they're kind of, the blooms are on the way out. And that's when you're like, okay.
Yeah, what do I do now?
But yeah, they still love it.
I used to know the names of the various mints. Like I know we have lemon balm and peppermint and all these different kinds, but I would have to look up on the garden plan to know what they are now.
It looks like the stuff right in front looks like the lemon balm, I think, because it's a little bit lighter color.
Yeah, these 2 bushes, they go to town. I've already trimmed them back twice this year. And when they start encroaching on the zinnias, I trim them again. I just get out scissors and cut away. So we're talking about maybe we need to do something with this garden. It's been here about 20 years, and we have a lot of things growing in the gravel. We're thinking about maybe in the gravel pathways having concrete poured and then sprinkle the light gravel on top so we don't have the weeding issue. You know, I don't mind weeding around flowers, but I get really tired of weeding in the pathways. And the brick, we have the same issue, you know, that real viney weed that grows when it's really hot and dry. It gets really long, stringy vines on it. It gets all in the brick and everywhere, and it's just horrible to fight. So we'll bring an example of it.
Oh yeah, my driveway's gravel, and I have to, you know, I even use the you know, the vinegar Epsom salt soap thing, and it stops them for a little bit, but boy, you know, next thing you know, here they come again. It's just amazing.
You know, I wondered, go ahead.
I was just gonna say that stuff, it kills the foliage, but not the you know, roots. So you just have to keep
it doesn't
on. Right. I mean, that's the difference.
Doesn't get down to the roots.
But we know how we feel about Roundup. But anyway,
Yeah.
yeah. And Jim was telling me, he's like, well, because he went back and snuck some Roundup in this one area. And he said that the thing is that stuff does only gets, the foliage. I said, I know, I know it's more work, but anyway.
Yeah. 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 Bill has treated the ground with the hydrangeas. And this one back here, you can see we've got the really pretty blues and kind of light lavenders and that sort of thing with the hydrangeas. So this is our backyard. I think you probably kind of saw it with the showing the back corners. And we have some pretty trees, and we have a big river birch that is one of the worst things about dropping limbs you've ever seen. We come back from Florida in the winter and there are limbs everywhere. And every time you have any kind of wind, it knocks all kinds of limbs off. So hopefully we'll get some professional work done here in the garden, and the trim things. We have the black plastic and it's kind of heaved out of the ground from the cold, and we'll get some work done on that maybe in the fall. So that is it. Does anybody have any?
It all looks beautiful, you guys. Just beautiful.
Well, we've been working hard on it, and we ended up having to do our own mulch this year, which is just too hard on us when we're the age that we're at. So we're are we at about 80 bags? Getting close to 80 bags. And
oh my gosh,
Bill mulched all back in that back corner, and it was taken over with the lily of the valley, and he at least temporarily got rid of it. But we have a couple real pretty dogwoods back there that we're hoping to trim back. One looks like a bush now. It needs the bottom trimmed off of it. So we'll wait. Yeah, Bill said it's natural. So we'll wait till the weather gets cooler and that sort of thing before we do anything on that. So
yes, Pam, everything's beautiful. Thanks for sharing it.
Well, thank you.
I have a couple questions. Do you have a secret for containing your lily of the valley?
No.
I need help with that.
It just goes wild. We've got a ton of it underneath the brown-eyed Susans there on the left that you can't see. I brought the lily of the valley from our old house, and it had come from my grandmother's originally. So I don't want to, get rid of all of it, but it is just digging it up is the only thing we've
That's
found.
kind of my dilemma. It came from my parents' farmhouse where I grew up, and I just wanted a little start, but it
goes to town,
and it runs underneath things and then comes up places you didn't think it would travel to.
It comes up in our brick walkway. I mean,
And then Bill's roses you were showing are, what kind are those?
Knockouts.
Knockouts. Okay, I've got a lot of knockouts, and they do bloom profusely. I love them.
Yeah, they do. They look really pretty when they're in full bloom and against the white.
Cut those all the way back in the fall or spring?
Trims them back quite a bit. Yeah,
we do too.
Yeah. Yep.
I don't think you can kill them. We've had them a long time and kind of abused them at times.
Yeah. We have one plant, I think, that didn't make it. I'm not sure why, but other than that, they have been very, very hardy. Yeah.
Everything's just beautiful.
Well, thank you.
I've got a question.
Yeah.
On yarrow, because I love yarrow, and I noticed, but I mean, I have a heart. I've had it in a particular place for a while, but it doesn't get really full. Like I see your yarrow is so full, and I'm not sure what to do about that, whether it would help to not mulch as much right there. I'm not sure, but I also noticed that it looked like you might have staked yours up.
Yeah.
So
we-
I've never staked
did.
my yarrow. Anyway, just I love it, but just I guess talk about how you make it look so nice, you know.
Yeah.
Right.
I think something kind of weird about it is it moves because yeah, it reseeds evidently. So it's moved its way over to that section where it is.
I replanted it there.
Oh, Bill replanted it, he said.
Because it used to be in front and it wasn't too
Yeah.
tall.
It was in front and he said it was too tall. So he replanted it over there. But yeah, you're right. It does get kind of tall and you either have to stake it or it'll flop over.
Now, does it reseed though? Because maybe I do need to
Yes.
let up on the mulch around there. Maybe it would be more likely to reseed.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe.
Anybody have
Yeah.
thoughts on that?
Becky, where is yours in good sun? Because they like full sun.
Yeah.
It's over.
Have a lot of shade.
It's out on the south end of the barn and it's over there, but those roses on that side don't do as well. And I think it's because we have the evergreens, the pine next to it, and it might take away from some of the sun. But I mean, they look healthy and happy, but maybe that is it. Maybe they need to be more out there in the sun, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, they might get, kind of leggy and not fill out if they're not getting enough sun.
And then I know you would, after it blooms, you would probably cut that back, right?
Yes.
I mean, they would be important to stay on top of that to keep it full, I'm guessing. Maybe I'm not as attentive.
But it'll reseed and it'll take over.
Yeah.
The space. So you got
Bill said it
that
will
would be a
kind of take
reason to
over.
leave it. Yeah. If I
Yeah, you
wanted
have to leave it till it, seeds and dries out, but then, yeah, we trim it back.
Yeah. Okay.
I have to share, I just had because I think maybe some wind, or I don't know, maybe it just got couple sides of my yarrow got too tall, but I cut, I don't like it looking messy and stuff. And so I cut those back, cut those. And then I had some of this dill in my garden that was getting a little crazy. And so I cut all that stuff back in a big old bouquet and brought it in. And I got to tell you, it's just beautiful. The dill and the yarrow together, the dill bloom, and it's just beautiful. So I'm going to keep doing that and cutting things out and putting them in a vase.
Yeah.
So yarrow is a good cut flower then, because I've never cut it back.
It didn't wilt
never had
one bit. Didn't wilt one bit. Nope. But neither did the dill. I thought the dill probably would, and it did not. And it's just a beautiful, and I mean, it's probably been a week and I'm looking at it right here. Oh, here. I don't know if you guys can see that, but
yeah,
I mean,
very pretty.
Okay, well, let's move on. Thank you so much. Wait a minute, I'm gonna do that, unmute more permanently. Thank you so much, Pam and Bill. I'm glad we gave you a reason to get caught up on all those chores. Oh my goodness, we appreciate it. So, and it is now 10:08, and I think I'm going to take a minute right now before we go on for questions, Q&A for the composting, just to talk about the schedule a little bit. So next Saturday at 6:30, there's the coneflower viewing party at the home of the Essexes, and I just want to remind everybody that, well, first of all, you all saw that couple, spouses or, are welcome, or, you could bring a friend. And that I think today is the deadline for RSVP. So let us make sure and get with Laura about that. And then upcoming in August 13th, we have scheduled a Zoom a session, and the topic is bring your best practice information for pruning. And so I thought, well, maybe we could talk today, and if anybody has, feels like they're particularly good maybe, or would like to present a particular plant, like some of the examples were lilac, forsythia, roses, hydrangea. So does anybody want to sign up for one in particular they can think of? I could do maybe. I was just thinking because my friend was asking me about pruning my rhododendron because I do prune that and we've had it 30 years. I mean, as long as we've lived here. I mean, I could do that if that's one that you're interested in. I'd love to know about best pruning practices for roses. I mean, if somebody wants to tell us some of their secrets, or just tell me, is there anything in particular you would like to do? Anybody?
I'd like to know about lilacs because we've basically let ours go wild, and they're getting kind of to the end of their lifespan. We did have 4 bushes and now we're down to 2, and we've had them a long time. And the only pruning things we've done is if they get out to where they hit you with the lawnmower, we chop off limbs. But
do you want to research that and do that? Because I'm like, what we're supposed to do at that session is bring some information about it, and it was sort of just a general, let everybody bring their best practices. And I thought it might be good to be a little bit intentional.
So why don't we do?
Sure.
You want to do lilacs? So okay.
Study more and see if we can figure out more.
Yeah, right.
yeah. Okay, I'll see what I can find out because I don't know.
Okay. Anybody else?
And hydrangeas, we're kind of confused on because, we read all that about the old growth, new growth. Then we were watching a garden show, and they started talking about, Bill, they start talking about some have both old growth and new growth. Have you heard that?
Well, maybe we need to study.
Isn't that something? So I don't know, cutting them the way they suggested. We did get blooms because we've had years where we've had like no blooms whatsoever when we cut them way back. So I can look into that a little bit more too, just because it's something we have a lot of plants of.
Yeah, I need help on hydrangeas. Mine don't even bloom, so, and I'm sure I'm cutting them back wrong.
So does anybody, I don't want to take too much time with this part of it, but does anybody feel like they're pretty good at roses? Because I'm rose challenged and I don't know. As far as just pruning throughout the season and things like that is what I'm talking about to keep it.
You want to talk about roses, Bill?
Well, I mean,
everything I read says just to cut them back between.
Well, don't talk about it now.
Yeah.
We don't want to take time now. We're just planning the session because I don't want to take away from today. Sorry, Bill.
That's okay.
He's not an expert, but he is the one that messes with the roses. So.
But does
I might look something up. I'm not an expert, but if you want me to kind of research roses.
If your roses tend to look really nice, that makes you a little bit of an expert, because even intuitively you probably got it somehow.
Well, okay. I'm kind of like what Pam said. We cut back what sticks out in the way.
Okay. So
I need to research that.
Okay.
Hey, Ellen, if you would look at knockout roses in particular, that would be great, because I think a lot of us own knockouts.
Right. That's what I have too.
Right.
I'd like to expand into some other roses, but knockouts is really all I have.
But include the others too, because I have some old, like some that really are meaningful because they came from Jim's, different people, and they're the more old fashioned, and a climber that's out by my at my entrance that I have a grow light on now. I'm trying to get it to actually, it's too shady. Jim wanted to put it there anyway, trying to get it to look pretty. But anyway,
how's it doing with the grow light?
Huh?
How's it doing with the grow light?
It's still not blooming, but the plant looks healthier than it ever has. But okay, so enough there. And if anybody, there's something you want to add, then just, let me know. So then in August, in August, it's still sort of evolving, our schedule is, but we had planned for August 27th to do an outing. But the date might change because the 27th, there's this wonderful cutting farm / actual working lavender farm. I mean, they grow the lavender, but they also work it, and like they have a gift shop where they make all this stuff. And it's Dolly's Cutting Farm in Franklin, which I happened on anyway. And I think that would be a wonderful outing, but she can't do the 27th because she already has this big Girl Scout group that's doing their flower badge. So, I mean, it might change. So I want to find out. I just need to get back with her. I should have done it by now to find out like when is a good time that they would be in bloom and not cut back yet. Cause that's they bloom again late summer. And so anyway, and then in September, we have a second Zoom meeting on the calendar, but there's no topic yet. And then, but I want to do the turtle guy, which I've told enough people about that. I'm not going to go into it. I don't want to take time, but it's not just a guy who has this turtle rescue, but he also knows a lot about, and he's creating a habitat right now for another space. And he's awesome. And that's in Lawrence, and he's willing. I just haven't secured a date with him yet. So anyway, but I'll keep that in the forefront. That's just kind of talking about going forward for the summer, at least through August and September. Okay, so at this time, we're just going to open it up for questions to Terry. If you have any questions about the urban composting, because she wasn't actually here to do this session, so we missed that part of it. But it was a great presentation.
Oh yeah, right. It was urban composting light. I was so scared of doing the video. I
thought it was great, Terry. I really enjoyed it. I wasn't at that meeting. I had to miss it, but I, viewed the recording afterwards. I thought it was great.
I was just frightened to death, Anita. I was like, oh, I can never ever done a video of any kind.
You did a great job with the iMovie. I was impressed with that.
So Anita, I know you're a big composter. Do you do anything different than what Terry does, or is it very similar process?
Well, the basics are similar, your ratios of browns to greens, that type of thing. And I think, I can't remember if you mentioned watering, Terry. It might be different because my setup is different. I have the bins that are open to the air, and Terry has the enclosed containers. Yeah, so it's a little bit different. And I suspect maybe hers doesn't get dried out as quickly as mine might, but I have to make sure to turn, because obviously the top layers get very dry, and then it just doesn't break down. So turning, and then I literally water my compost bins on occasion if it looks like everything's getting too dry, because the decomposition will just stop if it gets too dry.
Okay.
And then
same thing here, Anita. I turn with just cranking the tumbler. Okay.
Right.
But I also check it every now and then. And if it's looking a little dry, I pour in water.
Yeah. Because it really, the decomposition will just stop. And then, because I have space out here, and I had a extra bin built. I work with the two bins because, like Terry was talking about, I think, Terry, you said you had bags in the freezer because at some point you kind of have to stop adding, so you let it all like decompose,
right.
And so that's where the beauty of the two bins comes in, because I'll get one full and then I'll let it do its thing while I'm filling the other one. So having two works out really well.
Yes.
Otherwise, I mean, really, I can't think of, the concepts are really the same. It's just, a little bit different method of doing it. And I do have one of the barrel that, like that you turn or whatever, but I find I don't use it as much because it's up by the garden, and you'd think I would, but what I'm mostly composting are kitchen scraps and stuff like that. I do keep the other one for the garden stuff, but I feel like I have to chop it up a little bit more. And so sometimes that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I have to be a little more careful with the size of my greens because, and I think I added a note for Becky and said, you know, if it's really fibrous material, you have to chop it up if you're doing composting. And almost everything is fibrous. You'd be surprised what's
right.
like, I gotta cut this into pieces.
Right. And that's exactly why the one up by the garden I don't actually use as much, because when I'm yanking stuff out of the garden, then I'm in the mode, I'm cleaning and whatnot, and then I wind up not taking time to chop things up. But with the
I wonder if what would it be? I just was thinking about having just a certain food processor that you just use for your compost, so you don't have to be cleaning it. Like you wouldn't have to be cleaning it all the time, like, because it would be a pain to get that thing out, process it, put it in, and then clean it, and then but just to have one in your garage or whatever, somewhere where
That is so
you can just
funny.
get stinky, you know what I mean? And just use it for your compost. What do you think?
Hey, honey, we laughed at me over cutting up banana peels, and now you're going to put a food processor in your garage.
I don't know. By the time you pull all the weeds, you can have an awful big stack. It would take a long time to run them through a food processor.
Yeah, I guess you're right. I'm thinking of, I don't know. That was a silly
good idea if it was on a smaller scale, but I got lots of weeds
down on the ground and use garden clippers to just make a nice little chop, like I'm chopping up a salad or something.
You're talking big things versus things out of your kitchen scraps and things like that.
Even things out of your kitchen, like corn husks, or I mean, you just have to cut them up a little bit.
I mean, you don't have to, but it's just going to take that much longer for everything to decompose.
Right. And since mine's a closed system, Anita, and it's a smaller system, I don't want to just make one batch of compost a year. It's not that much compost anyway.
Right.
How do you tell when it's done?
Gets really light, Ellen. When you turn the bin, like when I first started out, literally the one I started on June the 1st, it was so heavy that my neighbors were like begging to come over and help me turn it, because they saw me struggling with it. All right. And then as it gets lighter and lighter, and that's the other thing you can tell about how much moisture it has in it, is that when you need to add a little more moisture, is that it gets easier and easier to turn.
But it gets like a really rich, dark, and you can see that all of the structure of the stuff you put in there is broken down, and it's dark and rich looking, and I gotta say, I've used my compost when it's been not quite ready, and was really wanting to get something around some plants, and it still works fine. I mean, it was like trying to think what was not broken down quite, just not a few things not quite broken down, but I actually don't put corn cobs in there because it does take them a while to break down, so I throw those out and let the animals chew on them.
I don't want to attract animals, so I just break them into pieces. And even so, now and then, when I'm emptying the compost pile, I'll still see vestiges of the corn cobs, and you're fine. It's called in situ composting. So in the situation, so it's fine to put partially composted materials on your plants. Although I do have a rather fat mouse outside. Think about that.
That's funny. I got a question, just in general, because I still haven't started my composting yet, which I want to. But anyway, so this might seem elementary, but I think of compost as working it into the ground, like if I'm preparing a bed or something, to work it into the dirt. But I mean, do you just spread it? I mean, can you just spread it in the garden and not necessarily work it in? I mean, how do you do it when you compost? Is that what you do?
I do both ways. I have a dedicated vegetable garden space. It's just a little square of my back garden. well, not a little square, but it's a rectangle in my back garden. And I'm always trying to enrich that soil, always, because it's just, I want it to be as productive as possible. So I always work in two things. One is that when I cut back the marigolds and stuff like that I've planted in it to help the tomatoes out, some of them I just, again, get my clippers out and chop them up and then just work them right into the soil at the end of the fall. But it means I get rogue marigolds the next year for sure. Okay. Which is fine. They're easy to pick out or to let grow again to protect your tomatoes. So I always do some of that. And then my big batches, I do bring them out. But if I'm planting something new, I want a little of my special love around it, okay, which is from my compost pile. So I will just put some of it, as you know how you have layers. When you plant a new plant, you dig a deep hole, you fill it partially, you get the thing in it, you water, you fill a little more dirt. I use the compost that I have as one of those layers. Mm-hmm. And that way I feel like I've, given it composting love.
But otherwise, like in an established perennial area or something, I mean, do you just put it around and in and around?
I wouldn't think twice about spreading it around. I think that would be great.
That's good enough is what I'm asking versus working it in, like, because I might be making it too hard because I'm like using my, little cultivator to try to work it in,
I've just spread it around, and I've just spread it around like at the base of plants. And then, at the end of the season, the plants will decompose and then all that stuff will work itself in by itself. So yeah, I think spreading around is just fine.
So if you'd have mulch, you'd need to kind of pull that back and then put the mulch back on top.
Well, yeah.
The composting is fun. It gives you a sense of accomplishment. It gives you a sense of connectedness to your food. It gives you a sense of control over your waste. And those are all very reinforcing feelings. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But it is work. Okay. And it's not, I don't make tons of compost with my urban composting because my little bin is kind of small, but I do recycle almost all of my kitchen waste, almost all of it. And I have to actually every now and then remind myself, you know what, dear, it will compost at the city dump too. Okay. All right.
But at the city dump, it composts typically anaerobically, which creates greenhouse gases, which is not a good thing. And that's one of, to me, that's one of the great benefits of composting, is that you keep more organic material out of the landfill to eliminate those greenhouse gases. And I think it's methane that's created anaerobically when that organic material decomposes. So every little bit that we do to keep that out of the landfill, I think, is to the plus side. If everyone composted, if every household composted, we would keep that much more out of the landfill and decrease the greenhouse gas production just that much more.
Anita, do you still have garden waste that you have to dispose of?
Yes, I do. I do
too. And I try to limit it. Like, I actually have been working on one quote trash bag full for all summer because I'm very, very good about being judicious about what I put in it and breaking it down and adding, stomping it down and everything. But I still end up with some waste that I can't put in the compost pile, and I don't know how else to dispose of it.
Well, and I tell you, I have the benefit of just a couple of doors down from me on my road, there is a wooded area. And, a lot of times I take my garden stuff and I might chop it up just a little bit, not much at all, and I take it down there and kind of spread it out. And I'll tell you, I've looked in there where I've put some of that garden debris before, and it's probably really great soil in there because I've done that for several years, and it just, that will decompose on its own back in there. And frankly, I think it probably gives, little nesting material for animals and
Well, that is
shelter
so
and
kind
whatnot.
of you
So
to offer that, and I'll bring you my trash bag.
well, if you've got one trash bag, you just bring it on. I can dump it for you.
So I mean,
used-
go ahead, Pam. Sorry.
I was just gonna say, we used to have lake property and we would do that too in the woods, and
Yeah.
it would break down.
Yeah, which is really amazing because it's very shaded back there because of all of the foliage and underbrush and stuff, but it does, the soil microbiota, does its job. So but now I have to admit, on occasion, if I have some of the real big, like at the end of the season, I have some of the real big stocky stuff, I've taken it to the yard recycle place there in real close there by the church, they're that place. I have taken some stuff like that there because I didn't want to take so much over into the woods, bin here and there is just takes care of itself, but sometimes at the end of the season I have a lot, and I have sticks that I can't take anywhere. So. But there's such a thing called hugelkultur that is using, it's a type of composting where, or maybe like a lasagna gardening, where you use sticks and stuff as a base, and then you layer on top of that some stuff like blood meal and bone meal, and then you can layer on more browns, and you create, and then maybe some compost on top, and then you create sort of this pyramid of layers that will then decompose, so there is that. I haven't looked into that very closely. I started to try it last year, and then I couldn't do it where I started it in my garden. It got too messy for my taste. I couldn't deal with it.
That's kind of what you're describing. Reminds me of that keyhole garden that I have, because I built from the ground up. It was like building layers of compost in the action, and then you put, soil on top, regular. But so it was a compost pile to start with. I mean, I had to let it sit there for a certain length of time before I put the soil on. And then in the middle, and I'm not doing this very well, but in the middle of this keyhole garden, you put actual compost in there. So it's constantly in that center.
Ooh.
And then, the whole point was it was created because of drought and space limited places in the world where people didn't have a lot of space for gardening. And plus, and then, so you also, you water it you can water it in the middle, just in the middle, and then you build it so that the garden itself is kind of, here's your center that you're composting in, and then the soil is sort of sloped down from there, so that everything you do is sort of always seeping into that.
It's leaching out, and then that limits the amount of water you have to put in just into the active pile. Yes, is what the keyhole. Right. So that's really a great idea.
I know, and like I said, I'd like to get back to really using it the way.
It'd be great if you had a fallow garden area each year, and you could use that for your fallow area, and then switch the next year and plant the fallow area and make the other part your fallow for this year. And I have tried that somewhat in my back garden by doing in situ composting, by rototilling up, what I had planted, and raking it into rows. So I try to plant every other row every other year. All right. All right. So, we all try crazy things, but that was one of the ones I was trying, to see if I could give it a year to kind of compost down in a row, and then plant in the row behind it. Okay. And then the following year, compost the row I had planted and plant in the row in front. So you just try different things to keep
small spaces.
To keep your soil refreshed, because I'm replanting that rectangle every single year.
So
Makes sense.
I'm sorry to cut it off, but
Mhm.
we've gone almost 5 minutes over. I mean, we've really stayed on and we've had really good discussion, a wonderful presentation, Pam. Thank
Oh,
you very
thank
much.
you.
And I've
Thank you.
learned stuff as I always do right here in this hour. And I'm really glad that I'm not sure who suggested it. It might have been Anita or Pam. I don't know, but just that follow-up Q&A about the composting is wonderful. So thank you so much.
And hope
Anita,
to see some of you next week at the Essexes.
yeah.
I think that'll be nice.
Sure.
And I know she
Make
has such a
sure-
lovely
Yes.
garden.
Make sure an RSVP. Thank you for ending with that.
And
Remember.
on the RSVP, did it come out from Laura, or did it come out from Fairfield, or did it come
was
out from
Laura.
Becky?
It was
From
Laura.
Laura.
So look for an
Okay.
email from Laura that she sent us, and it has the actual invitation. And yes, she wants an
Laura.
RSVP directly. And Mama Mary can come. Her. It would be. I think the space would work for her. I do.
Okay.
Great.
I may be a little late. I had actually had that on my calendar for the 23rd. So I booked something for the 16th. I booked a day with some friends on the 16th. So I'm like, dang it. I'm not sure what our,
yeah,
and I obviously missed when that changed. So I'm planning to make it, but I might be a little bit late. I don't know what the plan is with my friends for that day.
Okay. Yeah, that's unfortunate. I mean, I have a boat race that day, which I don't want to miss, but it turned out because I knew the reason we changed it was because of Western Yearly Meeting. And I agreed with that. I understood that. And I thought, but my priority this year is sailing. And I knew there was a race, but it's like, I may have to miss it, but I don't have to because we'll be done. I mean, there's like appetizers and an evening thing that starts at 5:30 at the lake. So I know I can make it by 6:30, but yeah.
And speaking of Western Yearly Meeting, if anybody's interested in seeing what the breakout sessions are, Bill said that it's on the website now.
Oh, that's good to know. Yeah.
And the other thing, thanks to Anita, thanks to Jeff Gabbard, he just automatically, once he became more in tune to this group, and actually they're part of this group now, he is getting the garden walk stuff on the church calendar. So, you know, it's he's doing a really good job at trying to keep it out there for planning purposes, to make it clear when things are planned. But so going forward, we're doing a better job at that. So
yeah, that's a good point, Becky, because I think probably people haven't been using that calendar because it hadn't really been maintained. So it's like, you know, but I think he's making a concerted effort to keep that up to date with everything he knows about. So
okay, so I am gonna say bye, everybody. Thank you, and hope to see you next week.
Have a fun rest of your weekend.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.